Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the uh, Health and Healing series. Tonight, we're going to talk about chronic pain. And as we're approaching this, this is going to be useful not only for chronic pain that I personally prefer to refer to as discomfort because of the connotation. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's also going to be beneficial if you're feeling any sort of stress. So don't think that we're just going to put on blinders and focus on pain. It'll help reduce stress levels as well. Let me get the housekeeping out of the way. Do not play any of these recordings while riding in a moving vehicle, while operating equipment or machinery, or any time that you're engaged in an activity that requires your full attention. These sessions are not intended to diagnose or treat any specific physical or mental condition. For diagnosis or treatment of such conditions, consult with your chosen healthcare provider. So with that out of the way, let's talk for a minute about pain. And as we're talking about this, I want you to understand that this is not an appropriate approach if you have new or undiagnosed, untreated, or unevaluated pain. So if you have a painful condition that has not been evaluated by a healthcare professional, it's very important that you have that done before you use this program, so that if there's anything organic going on that needs to be addressed or treated, that's taken care of. Once the medical folks are done with you, if you still experience chronic pain, that's what this recording is designed to assist with. So having said that, let's talk for a minute about pain. Pain is an important communication device. It's essential to our survival. It's very important that we're able to experience pain, because if we don't, you're not going to be aware if you have an injury or an illness that needs to be treated. And that could lead to an untimely death, which we would all like to avoid as long as possible. The other thing to understand about pain is all in your head. That doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but it means that that's where you experience pain, whether it's an injury to your foot or whether it's a surgical procedure or whatever it is. The pain is experienced in the neural pathways in your brain. And all pain medication works by blocking that signal so that you don't experience the pain. So it's interesting to think about what are some of the ways that we block that signal. Well, certainly medication blocks the signal. There's nerve blocks that can be used to block the signal. But what we also have discovered is that you can use the power of your mind to also very effectively block that signal. And that's what we're going to be about tonight. So I'm going to ask you to go on a little journey, a little bit different than some of the journeys we've done in the past. We may end up going to your special haven before we finish, but that's not where we're going to begin our journey. We're going to begin the journey by traveling to whatever the location is in your body that you're experiencing the discomfort. And if you think about the meaning of words and the connotation, the things that we interpret words to mean to ourselves, and I'm not talking about dictionary meaning, I'm talking about what sort of emotional response it brings up in us. And I know that when you go into your clinic, they're going to say, what's your pain level on 0 to 10? And that's probably appropriate. But if you think about the word pain, the connotation for most of us is that this is something that's being done to us and we don't have control over it. But if you change that concept and call it discomfort. Now, if you think about the word discomfort, it's a little bit easier to think, well, I'm not comfortable, so let me adjust my position, or let me put a pillow behind my back, or let me make some physical adjustment of some sort to be more comfortable. So I would encourage you in your self-talk to refer to the experience as discomfort. So let us begin. So just begin to take those slow, deep breaths that you're so familiar with. Nice and easy, slow and gentle. And we're going to be using imagination. So it may be beneficial to let your eyes gently close if that helps. And just for a minute or two, breathe. Slow and deep. In and out. Letting yourself begin to soften and to relax. And in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to journey to that part of you that you're experiencing the discomfort. And then I'm going to begin to use terms that have to do with imagining this experience as though it were an object, and then give it physical attributes. And that'll include what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, what it feels like. And if any of those categories don't resonate with you, that's okay. Just connect to the ones that do give you an impression. And so now in a moment, I'm going to count down from 10 to 1. And as I do, let yourself soften and relax. And now begin to allow your breathing to just settle into whatever feels comfortable, whatever feels normal and natural. And as I count down, imagine yourself traveling inward to that place, whether it's an organ or a body part, wherever it is that you're experiencing the discomfort. And just going there now, 10, 9, drifting inward, 8, 7, staying mentally alert even as you become even more physically relaxed. 7, 6, 5. My voice going with you to assist you, to be your guide on this journey. 4, 3, almost there, finding your way to that part that may seem troublesome, annoying, irritating, uncomfortable, that demands your attention. 2 and 1, you're there. So if you would imagine your awareness surrounding this area of discomfort, And just take a moment to be aware, be with it, notice it, without criticizing, without judging, without evaluating, with just an awareness. And for just a brief moment, notice if there is any meaning, any message that this part of you may be attempting to communicate to you. Whether it needs some additional attention in some way, some form of soothing, some form of understanding. Perhaps even some form of appreciation if it was an experience that at one point had given you an indication that it required additional attention. That it did indeed cause you to experience a formal evaluation. Because that was an important job for it to do. And as you are just in the presence of this feeling, in your mind's eye, think about that number between 0 and 10 that you would assign to this feeling right now. With, of course, 0 being no discomfort, no pain whatsoever. 10 being the worst ever. The reference being 5, if it were to wake you up. And imagine then somewhere nearby within your easy reach, there's a dial. And maybe it looks kind of like a dimmer switch. Some sort of a dial that you can rotate. And that dial is numbered from 0 at the lower left, all the way around to 10 at the lower right. And on that dial, there's a little mark or an arrow. So just turn that dial and point it to the number that corresponds with the number that you assigned this discomfort. Excellent. And now begin to notice this area of discomfort. And imagine if it were an object. What would it look like? If this feeling were represented as a color, what color would it be? Notice the size. How big is it? And if it were an object, notice where it is located. Is it out in front of you? Is it above you? Off to the side? Notice its proximity. How close is it? Perhaps it's right up there in your face, or perhaps it's invading your space. And if this could make a sound, what would it sound like? Perhaps a grinding, perhaps a growling, perhaps a screeching, perhaps a screaming, whatever it is that it represents to you, this feeling. What would that sound be? How loud would it be? How clear would that sound be? And if it had a texture, what would that texture be? Maybe the surface is rough like sandpaper, or maybe it has sharp edges. What if it had a temperature? What would the temperature be? Anywhere from burning hot to icy cold. The temperature that would represent this feeling. And of course, the feeling itself. Is it a burning sensation or a pounding sensation or a stabbing sensation or a grating sensation? And if it had a smell, what would it smell like? A smell that would represent this feeling. A burning smell. Smell of dead tissue, rotting, whatever it may be. And if it had a taste, imagine what that taste would be. Sour, perhaps. Bitter, perhaps. Perhaps a disgusting taste that you would want to spit out. Whatever taste represents this feeling. And just take a moment to observe this part of you. And be aware of any other physical attributes of vision, sound, feeling, smell, taste that represents the feeling as it is now. And now imagine each of those physical attributes has a connection, a wire connection perhaps, a cord, a cable, just a connection that attaches to that dial. And one by one, with each of these attributes, the visual attributes, the auditory, the sound attributes, the feeling, the smell, and the taste, each of those individual attributes, take that cord, that cable, that wire, and connect it to the dial. At whatever level that you set it at earlier. and they're all connected. And so now you can look at that dial and see the number that you assigned to the severity of this discomfort. And now you know what those physical attributes are that represent that number. So once again, bring your awareness back to this part of you. And now imagine that you can begin to change those attributes. So if you could adjust that color to something that you find more comforting, more soothing, more peaceful and relaxing, go ahead and change that color. A soft, soothing, comforting, and relaxing color. And imagine if you could shrink that thing down, tinier and tinier and tinier. And imagine if it was outside of you and far, far away behind you. So far away that even though you shrank it down and sent it far, far away, it's nothing more than a tiny pinhead. So let it be even smaller. Barely noticeable. Maybe even disappear completely, far off in the distance behind you. And now change the sound to a sound of something soothing and relaxing. Soft, gentle music. The sound of the waves at the beach. A gentle breeze blowing through the trees. A loving, comforting whisper. Turning the volume down, down, down. So not only has it become soothing, but it's barely reaching the threshold of your ability to hear. Just enough to offer you comfort. And what if that texture were to become smooth? Smooth like a round glass marble. Perhaps soft like a ball of cotton. And then imagine the temperature becoming comfortable. And if it was red burning hot, imagine it cooling off. Maybe you pack it in ice, or maybe you turn a fan on it, or maybe you turn up the air conditioner to cool it. And if you imagined it as a hard ice block, imagine it melting with an easy flow. The feeling becoming subdued. If it was pounding, it just seems to become less and less, perhaps merely tapping. If it felt stabbing, perhaps it becomes blunt, unable to penetrate. And imagine the smell beginning to change to a sweet, pleasant aroma. A rose, a flower garden in the spring. The cleansing smell of the air after a fresh rain. And then imagine the taste beginning to transform to something sweet, pleasant, subtle, not overly sweet, but just right, pleasant. And now take a moment to imagine any other physical attributes, whether they be visual, whether they be auditory, whether they be a feeling, a taste, a smell, any other attributes that you would imagine that you would find comforting, that you would find pleasing, soothing and relaxing, and apply those attributes to this part as well. And add to that a gentle understanding an appreciation that at one time this experience was meaningful and indicated to you something that needed your attention. And now it's been cared for. Comfort this part. Soothe it as you would a distressed infant. Perhaps even a gentle humming. And now consider this part. And with all of these adjustments, fine tunings you've made, if you think about that 0 to 10, imagine the number that you would assign to this part of you now. And now imagine these attributes too have attachments, wires, strings, cable, some sort of attachment that you can take and attach to that dial. And just turn that dial down, down, down to the number that represents the feeling now. And take these attachments from all of these attributes and fix them firmly to that dial. At that corresponding number. And so now you know, and I know that you know, that any time that you like, you can return to this state of mind. By breathing deeply, by letting yourself relax, by giving yourself permission to find peace of mind. And then simply by locating that dial and notice the number that you're experiencing at that time. And simply by turning that dial down, 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 you adjust all of those attributes down to a level that is so much more comfortable, so much more peaceful, so much more relaxing. And anytime that you wish to make additional adjustments to an individual attribute, simply imagine disconnecting that attribute from that dial, make the appropriate adjustment, and then reattaching. So that perhaps you may even find that you have the ability to turn that dial down even more. And find yourself experiencing a greater level of comfort. A calm, relaxed body. Peace of mind. Renewed optimism and hope. An enhanced sense of self. The strength and the power that lives within you. To adjust your life experience to one that is so much more agreeable, amenable, comfortable. And it may surprise you to begin to discover that your encounters your situations and your circumstances that used to bring to you feelings of frustration, irritation, stress, anxiety, annoyance, tension, perhaps even anger, just no longer have that effect on you. Because you can simply turn down that dial. And you begin to experience your challenges in a more objective way, a bit more philosophically, with patience and a touch of humor. And find yourself not only feeling calmer and greater peace of mind, but feeling better and better about you. And your relationship to these moments that we spend on this earth plane. And in a few moments, when we return to here and now, the current environment, you may choose to bring this feeling with you. You've created it, and it is yours. Take ownership. Put it to use regularly to benefit you. To give you a more enjoyable, enhanced life experience. And always notice that emanating from deep within you, there is a sense of peace and calm, a sense of tranquility. Always available for you to bring forth at your calling as you choose. So it is now. So it will continue to be from this moment forward. And in a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. And with each successive number, find yourself gradually returning to here and now, alert and aware, fully energized, rejuvenated, refreshed. And upon your return, you'll remain energized and refreshed and alert and aware until this evening when you lay down to sleep. And when you do, just find a comfortable position, take a few deep breaths, and let yourself once again drift and float back into your special haven, taking this feeling with you, holding on to it gently but firmly. One, two, beginning to return to here and now, coming back to fully alert and aware. 3, 4, returning fully to your environment now, noticing your surroundings, the temperature of the room, the cushions beneath you, and take in a deep, healing, cleansing breath. And with a joyful heart, 5, open your eyes and welcome back.